There she is.
Oh, I merely came back to water the roses. I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
He's gone to order the dog cart for me.
Oh, is he going to take you for a nice drive?
He's going to send me away.
And have we got to part?
I'm afraid so. It is a very painful parting.
It's always painful to part from people who one has known for a very brief space of time. The absence of old friends one can endure with equanimity, but even a momentary separation from anyone to whom one has just been introduced is almost unbearable.
Thank you.
The dog cart's waiting at the door, sir.
It can wait, Graves, for 5 minutes.
Yes.
I hope, Cecily, I shall not offend you if I state quite openly and frankly that you seem to me to be in every way the visible personification of absolute perfection.
I think your frankness does you great credit, Ernest. If you allow me, I will copy your remarks in my diary.
Do you really keep a diary? I'd give anything to look at it. May I?
Oh, no. You see, it is simply a young girl's record of her own thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. When it appears in volume form, I hope you will order a copy. But pray, Ernest, don't stop. I delight in taking down from dictation. I have reached absolute perfection. You can go on, I'm quite ready for more. Oh, don't cough, Ernest. When one is dictating, one should speak fluently and not cough. Besides, I don't know how to spell a cough.
Cecily, ever since I first looked upon your wonderful and incomparable beauty, I have dared to love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly.
I don't think you should tell me that you love me wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly. Hopelessly doesn't seem to make much sense, does it?
Cecily!
The dog cart is waiting. Sir.
Tell it to come round next week at the same hour.
Yes, sir.
Uncle Jack would be very much annoyed to hear that you were staying on till next week at the same hour.
Oh, I don't care about Jack at all. I don't care about anyone in the whole world. I love you, Cecily. You'll marry me, won't you?
Of course, you silly boy. Why, you have been engaged for the last 3 months.
For the last 3 months.
Yes, it'll be exactly 3 months on Thursday.
But how did we become engaged?
Well, ever since dear Uncle Jack first confessed to us that he had a younger brother who was very wicked and bad, you, of course, have formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and his prison. And, of course, a man who is much talked about is always very attractive. One feels there must be something in him after all. I dare say it was foolish of me, but I fell in love with you, Ernest.
Darling. And when was our engagement actually settled?
On the 14th of February last. Worn out by your entire ignorance of my existence, I determined to end the matter one way or the other. And after a long struggle with myself, I accepted you under this dear old arbor here. The next day I bought this little ring in your name.
Did I give you this? It's very pretty, isn't it?
Yes, you've wonderfully good taste, Ernest. It's the excuse I've always given for you leading such a bad life. Oh. And this is the box in which I keep all your dear letters.
My letters? But, my dear sweet Cecily, I have never written you any letters.
Well, you need hardly remind me of that, Ernest. I remember only too well that I was forced writing for you. But I wrote always 3 times a week, and sometimes oftener.
Oh, do let me read them, Cecily.
Why, couldn't possibly. They would make you far too conceited. The 3 that you wrote me after I had broken off the engagements are so beautiful and so badly spelled that even now I can hardly read them without crying a little.
But was our engagement ever broken off?
Well, of course it was. On the 22nd of last March. You can see the entry if you like. Today I broke off my engagement with Ernest. I feel it is better to do so. The weather still continues to be charming.
But why on earth did you break it off? What had I done? I had done nothing at all. Cecily, I'm very much hurt indeed to hear you broke it off, particularly when the weather was so charming.
It would hardly have been a really serious engagement if it hadn't been broken off at least once, but I forgave you before the week was over.
What a perfect angel you are, Cecily.
Oh, you dear romantic boy. I hope your hair curls naturally, does it?
Yes, with a little help from others.
I'm so glad.
You'll never break off our engagement again, Cecily?
Well, I don't think I could now that I've actually met you. Besides, of course, there's the question of your name.
Yes, of course.
You must not laugh at me, darling, for it has always been a girlish dream of mine to love someone whose name was Ernest. There's something in that name that seems to inspire absolute confidence. I pity any poor married woman whose husband is not called Ernest.
But my dear sweet Cecily, do you mean to say you could not love me if I had some other name?
But what name?
Oh, any name you like. Algernon, for instance.
But I don't like the name of Algernon.
My dear, sweet, loving little darling, I don't really see why you should object to the name of Algernon. It is not at all a bad name. In fact, it is a rather aristocratic name. Half the chaps who get into bankruptcy court are called Algernon. But seriously, Cecily, if my name was Algy, couldn't you love me?
I might respect you, Ernest. I might admire your character, but I fear I should not be able to give you my undivided attention.
Cecily, your rector here is, I suppose, thoroughly experienced in all the rites and ceremonials of the church.
Oh yes, Dr. Trousdale is a most learned man. He's never written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
I must see him at once on a most important christening. On most important business. I shan't be more than half an hour.
Considering that you've been engaged since February the 14th and I only met you today for the first time, I think it's rather hard that you should leave me for so long a period as half an hour. Why don't you make it 20 minutes?
I'll be back in no time.
Oh, what an impetuous boy he is. I like his hair so much. Oh, I must enter the pose in my diary.
Miss Fairfax has just called to see Mr. Worthing on very important business, Miss Fairfax states.
Is it Mr. Worthing in his library?
Mr. Worthing went over in the direction of the rectory some time ago.
Pray ask the lady to come out here. Mr. Worthing is sure to be back soon, and you can bring tea.
Yes, miss.
Miss Fairfax. I suppose one of the many good elderly women who are associated with Uncle Jack and some of his philanthropic work in London. I don't quite like women who are interested in philanthropic work. I think it is so boring of them.
Miss Fairfax.
Pray, let me introduce myself to you. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew. What a very sweet name. Something tells me we are going to be great friends. I like you already more than I can say. My first impressions of people are never wrong.
Oh, how nice of you to like me so much after we've known each other such a comparatively short time. Pray, sit down.
I may call you Cecily, may I not?
With pleasure.
You will always call me Gwendolyn, won't you?
If you wish.
Then that is all quite settled, is it not?
I hope so.
Perhaps this might be a favorable opportunity for my mentioning who I am. My father is Lord Bracknell. You have never heard of Papa, I suppose.
No, I don't think so.
Outside the family circle, Papa, I am glad to say, is entirely unknown. I think that is quite as it should be. The home seems to me to be the proper sphere for the man. Cecily, Mama, whose views on education are remarkably strict, has brought me up to be extremely short-sighted. So, do you mind me looking at you through my glasses?
Oh, not at all, Gwendolyn. I'm very fond of being looked at.
You are here on a short visit, I suppose?
Oh, no, I live here.
Really? Your mother, no doubt, or some female relative of advanced years resides here also.
No, I have no mother, nor in fact any relations.
Indeed.
My dear guardian, with the assistance of Miss Prism, has the arduous task of looking after me.
Your guardian?
Yes, I'm Mr. Worthing's ward.
Oh! It is strange he never mentioned to me that he had a ward. How secretive of him. He grows more interesting hourly. I am not sure, however, that the news inspires me with feelings of unmixed delight. I am very fond of you, Cecily. I have liked you ever since I met you. But I am bound to state, now that I know you are Mr. Worthing's ward, I cannot help expressing a wish you were, well, just a little older than you seem to be, and not quite so very alluring in appearance. In fact, if I may speak candidly...
Oh, pray do. I think that Whenever one has anything unpleasant to say, one should always be quite candid.
Well, to speak with perfect candor, Cecily, I wish that you were fully 42 and more than usually plain for your age. Ernest has a strong, upright nature. He is the very soul of truth and honor. Disloyalty would be as impossible to him as deception. But even men of the noblest possible moral character are extremely susceptible to the influence of the physical charms of others. Ancient history supplies us with many most painful examples of what I refer to. If it were not so, indeed, history would be quite unreadable.
I beg your pardon, Gwendolyn. Did you say Ernest?
Yes.
It is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is my guardian. It is his brother, his elder brother.
Ernest never mentioned to me that he had a brother.
I'm sorry to say they have not been on good terms for a long time.
That accounts for it. And now that I think of it, I have never heard any man mention his brother. The subject seems distasteful to most men. Cecily, you have lifted a load from my mind. I was growing almost anxious. It would have been terrible if any cloud had come across a friendship like ours, would it not? Of course, you are quite sure that it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is your guardian.
Quite sure. In fact, I'm going to be his.
I beg your pardon.
Dearest Gwendolyn, there's no reason why I should make the secret to you. Our little county newspaper is sure to chronicle the fact next week. Mr. Ernest Worthing and I are engaged to be married.
My darling Cecily. I think there has been some slight error. Mr. Ernest Worthing is engaged to me. The announcement will appear in the Morning Post on Saturday at the latest.
I believe you must be under some misconception. Ernest proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago.
It is certainly very curious, for he asked me to be his wife yesterday afternoon at 5:30. If you would care to verify the incident, pray do so. I never travel without my diary. One should always have something sensational to read in the train. I am so sorry, dear Cecily, if it is any disappointment to you, but I am afraid I have the prior claim.
It would distress me more than I can tell you, dear Gwendolyn, if it caused you any mental or physical anguish, but I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to you, he clearly has changed his mind.
If the poor fellow has been entrapped into any foolish promise, I shall consider it my duty to rescue him at once, and with a firm hand.
Whatever unfortunate entanglement my dear boy may have gotten into, I will never approach him with it after we are married.
To allude to me, Miss Cardew, as an entanglement, you are presumptuous. On an occasion of this kind, it becomes more than a moral duty to speak one's mind. It becomes a pleasure.
Do you suggest, Miss Fairfax, that I entrapped Ernest into an engagement? How dare you? This is no time for wearing the shallow mask of manners. When I see a spade, I call it a spade.
I'm glad to say that I have never seen a spade. It is obvious our social spheres have been widely different.
Shall we lay tea here as usual, miss?
Yes, as usual.
Are there many interesting walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew?
Oh yes, great many. On the top of one of the hills quite close, one can see 5 counties.
like that. I hate crowds.
I suppose that is why you live in town.
Quite a well-kept garden this is, Miss Cardew.
So glad you like it, Miss Fairfax.
I had no idea there were any flowers in the country.
Oh, flowers are as common here, Miss Fairfax, as people are in London.
Personally, I can understand how anybody manages to exist in the country if anybody who is anybody does. The country always bores me to death.
That is what the newspapers call agricultural depression, is it not? I believe the aristocracy are suffering from it very much just at present. It is almost an epidemic amongst them, I have been told. May I offer you some tea, Miss Fairfax?
Thank you. Detestable girl. But I require tea.
Sugar?
No, thank you. Sugar is not fashionable anymore.
Cake or bread and butter?
Bread and butter, please. Cake is rarely seen at the best houses nowadays.
Hand that to Miss Fairfax.
I am known for the gentleness of my disposition and the sweetness of my nature, but I warn you, Miss Cardew, you may go too far.
To save my poor, innocent, trusting boy from the machinations of any other girl, there are no lengths to which I would not go.
From the moment I saw you, I distrusted you. I felt you were false and deceitful. I am never deceived in such matters. My first impressions of people are invariably right.
It seems to me, Miss Fairfax, that I'm trespassing on your valuable time. No doubt you have many other calls of a similar character to make in the neighborhood.
Gwendolyn, darling.
Oh, Ernest, my own Ernest. A moment. May I ask if you are engaged to be married to this young lady?
Dear little Cecily? Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty little head?
Thank you. You may.
I knew there must be some misunderstanding, Miss Fairfax. The gentleman whose arm is at present round your waist is my guardian, Mr. John Worthing.
I beg your pardon.
This is Uncle Jack.
Jack! Oh!
Here is Ernest.
My own love.
A moment, please, Ernest. May I ask you, are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
To what young lady? Good heavens, Gwendolyn.
Yes, to Gwendolyn.
Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty little head?
Thank you, you know.
I felt there was some slight error, Miss Cardew. The gentleman who is now embracing you is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncrieff.
Algernon Moncrieff? Oh, are you called Algernon?
I cannot deny it.
Oh.
Is your name really John?
I could deny it if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked. But it certainly is John. It has been John for years.
A gross deception has been practiced on both of us.
My poor wounded Cecily.
My sweet wronged Gwendolyn.
You will call me sister, will you not?
There's just one question I would like to be allowed to ask my guardian.
An admirable idea. Mr. Worthing, there is one question I would like to be permitted to put to you. Where is your brother, Ernest? We are both engaged to be married to your brother, Ernest, so it is a matter of some importance to us to know where he is at present.
Gwendolyn, Cecily. It is very painful to be forced to speak the truth. This is the first time in my life I have ever been reduced to such a painful position. And I am quite inexperienced in doing anything of the kind. However, I will tell you quite frankly that I have no brother Ernest. I have no brother at all. I've never had a brother in my life, and I have certainly not the smallest intention of ever having one in the future.
No brother at all?
None.
Had you never a brother of any kind?
Never. Not even of any kind.
I'm afraid it is quite clear, dear Cecily, that neither of us is engaged to be married to anyone.
It is not a very pleasant position for a young girl to suddenly find herself in, is it?
Let us go into the house. They will hardly venture to come after us there.
No, men are so cowardly, aren't they?
This dreadful state of affairs is what you call bun-burying, I suppose.
Yes, and a perfectly wonderful bunbury it is. The most wonderful bunbury I've ever had in my life.
Well, you've absolutely no right to bun-bury here.
That is absurd. One has a right to bunbury anywhere one chooses. Every serious bunburyist knows that.
Serious bun-buryers. Good heavens.
Well, one must be serious about something if one wants to have any amusement in life. I happen to be serious about bunburying. What on earth are you serious about? I haven't the remotest idea. About everything, I should fancy. You have such an absolutely trivial nature.
The only small satisfaction I can take from the whole of this wretched business is that your friend Bunbury is quite exploded. You won't be able to get down to the country quite as often as you used to do, dear Algy. Very good thing, too.
Your brother is a little off color, isn't he, dear Jack? You won't be able to disappear to London as often as your wicked custom was, and not a bad thing either.
As for your conduct toward Miss Cardew, I must say, your taking in a sweet, simple, innocent girl like that is quite inexcusable. To say nothing of the fact that she is my ward.
I can see no possible defense that you're deceiving a brilliant, clever, thoroughly experienced young lady like Miss Fairfax, to say nothing of the fact that she's my cousin.
I wanted to be engaged to Gwendolyn, that is all. I love her.
Well, I simply wanted to be engaged to Cecily. I adore her.
There is certainly no chance of you marrying Miss Cardew.
I don't think there's much likelihood, Jack, in your and Miss Fairfax being united.
Well, that is no business of yours.
If it was my business, I wouldn't talk about it. It's very vulgar to talk about one's business. Only people like stockbrokers do that, and then merely at dinner parties.
How can you sit there just calmly eating muffins when we are in this horrible trouble? You seem to me to be perfectly heartless.
Well, I can't eat muffins in an agitated manner. The butter would probably get on my cuffs. One must always eat muffins quite calmly. It is the only way to eat them.
I say it's perfectly heartless you're eating muffins at all under the circumstances.
When I'm in trouble, eating is the only thing that consoles me. Indeed, when I'm in really great trouble, as anyone who knows me intimately will tell you, I refuse everything but food and drink. At the present moment, I am eating muffins because I am unhappy. Besides, I'm particularly fond of muffins.
Well, there's no reason at all why you should eat them all in that greedy way.
I wish you would have tea cake instead. I don't like tea cake.
Well, good heavens, a man may eat his own muffins in his own garden.
But you just said it was perfectly heartless to eat muffins.
So I said it was perfectly heartless for you under the circumstances. That is completely different.
That may be, but the muffins are the same.
Algy, I wish to goodness you would go.
You can't possibly ask me to go without having some dinner. It's absurd. I never go without my dinner. No one ever does. Besides, I have just made arrangements with Dr. Chasuble to be christened at 6:15 under the name of Ernest.
My dear fellow, the sooner you give up that nonsense, the better. I made arrangements this morning with Dr. Chasuble to be christened myself at 5:30. And naturally, I will take the name of Ernest. Gwendolyn would wish it. We can't both be christened Ernest. That's absurd. Besides, I have a perfect right to be christened if I like. There is no evidence at all that I was ever christened by anybody. I should think it's very probable that I never was, and Dr. Chasma thinks the same thing. It is entirely different in your case. You have been christened already.
Yes, but I haven't been christened in years.
Yes, but you have been christened. That's the main thing.
Quite so. So I know my constitution can stand it. If you're not quite sure about your ever having been christened, I must say I think it very dangerous you're venturing on it now. It might make you very unwell. You can hardly have forgotten that someone very closely connected with you was very nearly carried off this week in Paris with a severe chill.
You said yourself a severe chill was not hereditary.
It used to be, I know, but I dare say it is now. Science is always making wonderful improvements in things.
Oh, that is nonsense, Algy. You're always talking nonsense.
Jack, you're at the muffins again. I wish you wouldn't. I told you I was particularly fond of muffins.
But I hate tea cake.
Why on earth do you allow tea cake to be served up to your guests? What ideas you have of hospitality.
Algernon! I have already told you to go. I do not want you here. Why don't you go?
I haven't quite finished my tea yet. And there is one muffin left.
Oh.
The fact that they did not follow us at once into the house as anyone else would have done seems to me to show they have some sense of shame left.
They happen to eat muffins. That looks like repentance.
They don't seem to notice us at all. Couldn't you cough?
But I haven't got a call.
They're looking at us. What effrontery.
They're approaching. That's very forward of them.
Let us preserve a dignified silence.
Certainly, it is the only thing to do now.
Come down, lady, come down, lady, come down. She will not come, I know her well. Of lover's vows she has no care, and little good a man can tell of one so cruel and so fair. Who love is but a woman's song, and never knows the lover's pain. And I who love that lover born, must love in vain, must love in vain. Come down, lady, come down.
This dignified silence seems to produce an unpleasant effect.
The most distasteful one.
But we will not be the first to speak.
Certainly not.
Mr. Worthing, I have something very particular to ask you. Much depends on your reply.
Gwendolyn, your common sense is invaluable. Mr. Moncrieff, kindly answer me the following question. Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
In order that I might have an opportunity of meeting you.
That certainly seems a satisfactory explanation, is it not?
Yes, dear. If you can believe him.
I don't. But that does not affect the wonderful beauty of his answer.
True. In matters of grave importance, style, not sincerity, is the vital thing. Mr. Worthing, what explanation can you offer to me for pretending to have a brother? Was it that you might have an opportunity of coming up to town to see me as often as possible?
Can you doubt it, Miss Fairfax?
I have the gravest doubts upon the subject. But I intend to crush them. Their explanations appear to be quite satisfactory. Especially Mr. Worthing's. That seems to me to have the stamp of truth upon it.
I am more than content with what Master Moncrieff said. His voice alone inspires one with absolute credulity.
Then you think we should forgive them?
Yes. I mean, no.
True, I had forgotten. There are principles at stake that one cannot surrender. Which of us is going to tell them? The task is not a pleasant one.
Should we not both speak at the same time?
An excellent idea. I nearly always speak at the same time as other people. Will you take the time from me?
Certainly.
Your Christian names are still an insuperable barrier. That is all.
Our Christian names? Is that all? But we are going to be christened this afternoon.
For my sake, you're prepared to do this terrible thing.
Well, I am.
To please me, you're ready to face this fearful ordeal?
I am.
How absurd to talk of the equality of the sexes. Where questions of self-sacrifice are concerned, men are infinitely beyond us.
We are.
They have moments of physical courage of which we women know absolutely nothing.
Darling.
Darling.
Lady Bracknell!
Good heavens.
Gwendolyn, what does this mean?
Merely that I am engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Come here, sit down. Sit down immediately. Hesitation in any kind is a sign of mental decay in the young and of physical weakness in the old. Apprise her of my daughter's sudden flight by her trusty maid, whose confidence I purchased by means of a small coin. I followed her at once by luggage train, but you must clearly understand that all communication between yourself and my daughter must cease immediately. On this point, as indeed on all points, I am firm.
I am engaged to be married to Gwendolyn, Lady Bracknell.
Forgive me, sir, you are not. And now, as regards to Algernon,
Yes, Aunt Augusta.
may I ask if it is in this house that your invalid friend Mr. Bunbury resides?
Oh, no. Bunbury does not live here. Bunbury is somewhere else at present. In fact, Bunbury is dead.
Dead? When did Mr. Bunbury die? His death was extremely sudden.
Oh, I killed Bunbury this afternoon. Bunbury died this afternoon.
What did he die of?
Bunbury? He was quite exploded.
Exploded?
My dear Aunt Augusta, he was found out. The doctors found out Bunbury could not live, so Bunbury died.
He seems to have great confidence in the opinion of his physicians. However, I am glad at the last he made some definite course of action and has gone under proper medical advice. And now that we've got rid of this Mr. Bunbury, Mr. Worthing, may I ask who is that young person whose hand my nephew Algernon is now holding in what seems to be a peculiarly unnecessary manner?
Well, that, Lady Bracknell, is Miss Cecily Cardew, my ward.
I'm engaged to be married to Cecily, Aunt Augusta.
I beg your pardon.
Mr. Moncrieff and I are engaged to be married, Lady Bracknell.
I do not know whether there's anything peculiarly exciting in the air in this particular part of Hertfordshire, but the number of engagements seems to be considerably above the proper average that statistics have laid down for our guidance. I do not think some preliminary inquiry on my part would be out of place. Dear Mr. Worthing, is Miss Cardew at all connected with any of the larger railway stations in London? Before yesterday, I had no idea there were any families or persons whose origin was a terminus.
Miss Cardew is the granddaughter of the late Mr. Thomas Cardew of 149 Belgrave Square Southwest, Gervais Park, Dorking, Surrey, Agnes Moran, Fifeshire, North Britain.
Oh, that is not unsatisfactory. 3 addresses always inspire confidence, even in tradesmen. But what proof do I have of their authenticity?
I have carefully preserved the court guides of the period. They are open to your inspection, Lady Bracknell.
I've known strange errors in that publication.
Miss Cardew's family solicitors are Markby, and Markby.
Markby, and Markby. Oh, they are the highest position in a firm of their kind. And indeed, I am told one of the Mr. Markbys is occasionally seen at dinner parties. So far, I am satisfied.
Oh, well, that is very kind of you, Lady Bracknell. I have also in my possession, you will be pleased to hear, certificates of Miss Cardew's birth, baptism, whooping cough, registration, vaccination, confirmation, and the measles, both the English and the German variety.
Life crowded with incident, I see, although perhaps somewhat too exciting for a young girl. I am myself not in favor of premature experiences. Now, Gwendolyn. Oh, yes, the time approaches for our departure. We have not a moment to lose, but as a matter of form, Mr. Worthing, I had better ask, does Miss Cardew have any little fortune?
Oh, about £130,000 are in the funds, but that is all. So, goodbye, Lady Bracknell. So pleased to have seen you.
No, just a moment, Mr. Worthing. £130,000 in the funds. Miss Cardew seems to be a very attractive young lady now that I look at her. Come over here, dear child. Pretty girl, your dress is sadly simple and your hair seems almost as nature might have left it. However, we can soon alter all that. Turn round, sweet child. No, the side view is what I want. Oh, yes, just as I expected. There are distinct social possibilities in your profile, but the chin a little higher. Style largely depends on the way the chin is worn, and they are worn very high at present. Algernon.
Yes, Aunt Augusta.
There are distinct social possibilities in Miss Cardew's profile.
Cecily is the dearest, sweetest, prettiest girl in the whole world, and I don't care tuppence about social possibilities.
Oh, Algernon, don't ever speak disrespectfully in society. Only people who can't get into it do that. Now, you dear child, you must know that Algernon has nothing to depend on but his debt. I do not approve of mercenary marriages. When I married Lord Bracknell, I had no fortune of any kind, but I never dreamed of allowing that to stand in my way. Well, I suppose I must give my consent.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
And Cecily, you may kiss me.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell.
Oh, and you may address me as Aunt Augusta in the future.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
The marriage, I think, had better take place quite soon.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Thank you, Aunt
Yes,
Augusta.
to speak frankly, I am not in favor of long engagements. It gives people an opportunity to find out about each other's characters, which I think is never advisable.
I beg your pardon for interrupting you, Lady Bracknell, but this engagement is quite out of the question. I am Miss Cardew's guardian. She cannot marry without my consent until she comes of age. That consent I absolutely decline to give.
Well, upon what grounds, may I ask? Algernon is an extremely, I may say, ostentatiously eligible young man. He has nothing, but he looks everything. What more could one desire?
It pains me very much to have to speak frankly to you, Lady Bracknell, about your nephew. But the fact is, I do not approve at all of his moral character. I suspect him of being untruthful.
Untruthful? My nephew Algernon? Impossible. He went to Oxford.
Well, I'm afraid upon this matter there can be no possible doubt. Yesterday afternoon, during my temporary absence in London on an important question of romance, he obtained admission into my house by means of the false pretense of being my brother. He succeeded in the course of the afternoon in alienating the affections of my only ward. He subsequently stayed to tea and devoured every single muffin. What makes his conduct all the more heartless is he knew right well from the first that I have no brother, that I never had a brother, that I have no intention of ever having a brother in the future. I distinctly told him so myself yesterday afternoon.
Mr. Worthing, after careful consideration, consideration, I have decided to entirely overlook my nephew's conduct to you.
Well, that is very generous of you, Lady Bracknell. My own decision, however, is unalterable. I decline to give my consent.
Dear child, come over here. How old are you?
Well, I'm really only 18, but I always admit to 20 when I go to evening parties.
You are perfectly right in making some slight alteration. Indeed, no woman should ever be quite accurate about her age. Look so calculating. Let's see, 18 but admitted to 20 at dinner. Well, very soon you will be of age and free from the restraints of tutelage, so I don't think your guardian's consent is, after all, a matter of any importance.
I beg your pardon, Lady Bracknell, for interrupting you again. But it is only fair to tell you that according to the terms of her grandfather's will, Miss Cardew does not come legally of age till she reaches 35.
Oh, that does not seem to be a grave objection. 35 is a very attractive age. London society is full of women of the very highest birth who, by their own free choice, have remained 35 for years. I see no reason why I, dear Cecily, should not be even more attractive at that age that you mentioned than she is at present. There will be a large accumulation of property.
Algy, would you wait for me till I was 35?
Of course I could. You know I could, Cecily.
Yes, I felt it instinctively, but I couldn't wait all that time. I hate waiting even 5 minutes for anybody. It always makes me rather cross. I'm not punctual myself, I know, but I do like punctuality in others, and waiting even to be married is quite out of the question.
What is to be done, Cecily?
I don't know, Mr. Moncrieff.
Mr. Worthiness, Miss Cardew states that she positively cannot wait until she is 35. A remark which I am bound to say shows a rather impatient nature. I would beg of you to reconsider your decision.
Well, Lady Bracknell, the matter is entirely in your own hands. The moment you consent to my marriage to Gwendolen, I will most gladly allow your nephew to form an alliance with my ward.
You must be aware that what you propose is completely out of the question.
Then a passionate celibacy is all that any of us can look forward to.
That is not the destiny I propose for Gwendolen. Algernon, of course, can choose for himself. Oh, come here, we have missed 5, if not 6 trains, and to miss any more might expose us to comment on the platform.
Everything is quite ready for the christenings.
Christening, sir? Is that not somewhat premature?
Both of these gentlemen have expressed a desire for immediate baptism.
At their age? The idea is irreligious and grotesque. Algernon, I forbid you to be baptized. I will not hear of such excesses.
Am I to understand that there's to be no christenings at all this afternoon?
I'm afraid that as things stand now, it would not prove of much value to either one of us, Dr. Chasuble.
I am grieved to hear such sentiments from you, Mr. Worthing. As your present mood seems to be one peculiarly secular, I shall return to the church at once. Indeed, I was just informed by the pew opener that for the last hour and a half, Miss Prism has been waiting for me in the vestry.
Miss Prism, did I hear you mention a Miss Prism?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, I'm going to join her now.
Is this Miss Prism a female of repellent aspect remotely connected with education?
She is the most cultivated of ladies, and the very picture of respectability.
It's obviously the same person. May I ask what position she holds in your household?
Miss Prism, Lady Bracknell, has been for the past 3 years Miss Cardew's esteemed governess and valued companion.
Despite of what I hear of her, I must see her at once. Let her be sent for.
Oh, she approaches, as she is nigh.
Just wait here, please.
I was told you would be expecting me in the vestry, Dr. Chasuble. I have been waiting for you there for the past hour and 3/4.
Prism! Come here, Prism. Prism, where is that baby? 34 years ago, Prism, you left Lord Bracknell's house, number 104 Upper Grosvenor Street, in charge of a perambulator that contained a baby of the male sex. You never returned. A few weeks later, through the elaborate investigation of the Metropolitan Police, the perambulator was discovered in a remote corner in Bayswater at midnight, standing by itself. It contained in it a manuscript of a 3-volume novel of more than usually revolting sentimentality, but the baby was not there. Prism, where is that baby?
Lady Bracknell, I admit with shame that I do not know.
Oh.
I only wish I did. The plain facts of the case are these. On the morning of the day you mentioned, a day that is forever branded on my memory, I prepared as usual to take the baby out in its perambulator. I had also with me a somewhat old but capacious handbag in which I intended to place the manuscript of a work of fiction that I had written during my few unoccupied hours. In a moment of mental abstraction for which I can never forgive myself, I deposited the manuscript in the bassinet and placed the baby in the handbag.
Where did you deposit the handbag?
Do not ask me, Mr. Worthing.
Miss Prism, this is a matter of no small importance to me. I must insist on knowing where you deposited the handbag that contained that infant.
I left it in the cloakroom of one of the larger railway stations in London.
What railway station?
Victoria, the Brighton line.
I must retire to my room for a moment. Gwendolyn, will you wait here for me?
You are not too long. I will wait here for you all my life.
What do you think this means, Lady Bracknell?
I dare not even suspect, Dr. Chaswell. I need hardly tell you that families in high positions, strange coincidences are not supposed to occur. It's hardly considered a thing.
Uncle Jack seems strangely agitated.
Your guardian has a very emotional nature.
Oh, this noise is very unpleasant. It sounds as if it was sounding an argument.
Where did you put
I dislike arguments of any kind. They're always vulgar and often convincing.
It is stopped now.
I wish we'd arrive at some conclusion.
The suspense is terrible. I hope it will last.
Miss Prism, is this the handbag? Examine it carefully before you speak. The happiness of more than one person relies upon your answer.
It appears to be mine. Yes, here on the lock are my initials. I had forgotten that in an extravagant mood I had them placed there. The bag is undoubtedly mine. I am so delighted to have it unexpectedly returned to me. It has been a great inconvenience being without it all these years.
Miss Prism, more is restored to you than just this handbag. I was the baby you placed in it.
You?
Yes. Mother!
Mr. Worthing, I am unmarried!
Unmarried? Well, I do not deny that it's a serious blow. But still, who has the right to cast a stone against one who has suffered? Cannot repentance wipe out an act of folly? Why should there be one law for men and yet another law for women? Mother, I forgive you.
Mr. Worthing, there is an error. There is the lady who can tell you who you really are.
Lady Bracknell, I hate to seem inquisitive, but would you kindly inform me of who I am?
You are the son of my poor sister, Mrs. Moncrieff, and consequently, Algernon's elder brother.
Algy's elder brother? Did I have a brother after all? I knew I had a brother. I always said I had a brother. Cecily, didn't I always say, how could you ever doubt it that I have a brother? Dr. Chasuble, my unfortunate brother. Miss Prism, my unfortunate brother. Gwendolyn, my unfortunate brother. You young scoundrel! You are going to have to treat me with more respect in the future. You have never treated me like a brother in all your life.
Well, not till today, old boy, I admit. I did my best, however, though I was out of practice.
Under these strange and unforeseen circumstances, Mr. Moncrieff, you may kiss your Aunt Augusta.
My own. But what own are you? What is your Christian name now that you have become someone else?
Good heavens. I had quite forgotten that point. Your decision on the subject of my name is irrevocable, I suppose?
I never change, except in my affections.
What a noble nature you have, Gwendolyn.
Well, then the question had ought to be cleared up at once. Lady Bracknell, Aunt Augusta, at the time when Miss Prism had left me in the handbag, had I been christened already?
Good. Every luxury that money could buy, including Christine, had been lavished on you by your fond and doting parents.
That I was christened. Well, that settles it. And what name was I given? Let me know the worst.
Well, as the eldest son, you were naturally christened after your father.
Yes, but what was his Christian name?
Well, I cannot at the moment recall what the general's Christian name was. Well, I'm sure he had one, though. I mean, he was eccentric, but that was only in later life.
Algy, can't you remember what our father's Christian name was?
My dear boy, we were never on speaking terms. He died when I was a year old.
His name would appear in the army lists of the period, I suppose, Aunt Augusta?
Well, yes, the general was essentially a man of peace, except in his domestic life. But I'm sure that his name would appear in any of the military directories.
The army list of the last 40 years are here. Yes, these delightful records should have been my constant study. K, L, M. Here we are. Marlon, Maxburn, Magley. Well, what costly names these are. Markley, Ligsby, Mobbs. Moncrieff, here we are. Lieutenant, 1840. Lieutenant Colonel, Colonel General, 1869. The Christian name. Ernest John. I always told you, Gwendolyn, that my name was Ernest. Well, it is Ernest after all. I mean, it naturally is Ernest.
Yes, I remember now. The general was called Ernest. I knew there was a reason I particularly disliked the name.
Ernest, my own Ernest.
Oh, Gwendolyn.
I felt from the first you could have no other name.
Oh, Gwendolyn, it is a terrible thing for a man to find out suddenly that all his life he has been speaking nothing but the truth. Can you ever forgive me?
I can, for I feel you are sure to change.
My own one.
Letitia! Frederick, at last!
Cecily, at last.
Gwendolyn. Oh, at last.
My nephew, you seem to be displaying signs of triviality.
Oh, on the contrary, Aunt Augusta. I've now realized, for the first time in my life, the vital importance of being earnest.